So Rich, so he's a post-production supervisor. He has also done video editing. He's also been writing some stuff, but he has been working for many years in different things and area from the post-production side. So I brought him up so he can talk about his experience and, giving you guys more knowledge about different areas and different perspectives from, someone that is being active working.
In high school for skateboarding videos with my friends, and then that sort of led me to discover film directing. And so undergrad, I went right into film school, and then afterwards, I tried to do directing while making a living in editing. Not only editing, but post-production related things. Nothing too major, just like little tiny little projects here and there, right? And then towards the end of my 20s, I wanted to really make a push again for my directing. So I actually applied to the American Film Institute screenwriting program as a way to sort of develop some material and then enter the industry with like material to kind of represent what kind of work I want to make. So I did that. I came out to LA in 2010, 2-year program, and then afterwards, funny thing is there's not that much work for MFAs in screenwriting. So I ended up having to get back to post-production to do work. So after graduate school, I did a couple of years at the New York Film Academy as a teaching assistant in the post department. And then after that, I ended up getting my first post-production supervising job at a YouTube channel called All Dep Digital. Maybe you know someone named Russell Simmons. That was his YouTube channel. And I did that for a handful of years before doing just all kinds of other projects, a little bit of features, a little bit of commercials, like, all kinds of stuff, just sort of seeing what else is out there. And then eventually landing at Fuse TV. I'm at Fuse as post-production supervisor for our original content, where Shayla has worked with me as an editor. And the features are happening along the sides as parallel from my basically classmates and friends from grad school. So one of the reasons to really try to go to a good school is that your classmates end up in places, right? And then they're the ones with the better
Yeah.
gig to call you about. So that's kind of what happened to me, to be honest. Like I didn't quite go hunting for it, but I had a friend who I used to work with at All Def and a little bit at Fuse who is now in feature land. And he's like, yo, Rich, we're picking up here. Get in on this. And I'm happily unmarried and childless, so I can do such things. Um, you know, and so that's kind of where I'm, where you find me and where all this is going. That's the recent development in my career is like I stopped like obsessing over the fact that it's not going somewhere or is it going somewhere. I just learned to sort of enjoy wherever I was and just do it fully. And that has interestingly been yielding more results and more momentum, as soon as you stop, right? Um,
Yeah.
that's what happened in my career finally. So yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. And we can pick up from wherever you're curious. Yeah.
Did you like television? Did you like motion pictures? Did you like YouTube? Where was kind of like maybe where you kind of felt like most comfortable working with?
Oh, most comfortable working with and what I love are slightly different answers. Um,
Good question, stuff.
yeah, but they're good questions. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm still here because of my love of cinema. Like, there was a moment where I just sort of understood what cinema was, like piecing all these things together to create emotion, meaning, story, and like just that whole affair is so magical to me. And it's, I think, one of the best things our species has come up with, period. Right. Part of my being like made the most sense in this business, or like when I was working, like what part of it felt most right. And I have to say, like, for a lot of my young life, I was an anxious being, just like most people. And the way I address the anxiousness is to become mega organized, right? So like spreadsheets and crazy folder structures and like perfectly organized Premiere projects was how I did it. And then like when I became a supervisor, I just sort of imposed an orderly will so that artists can have a space to do some controlled productive chaos and not just pointless energy sucking chaos, right? There's good chaos and bad chaos. And so for a while, when it was in the very beginning, it was just organization and no chaos at all until I realized I was like stamping out too much of the good chaos. I was like, okay, how much just good chaos can we tolerate? And so now I have a system that's not completely bolted down, that has some wiggle, but is still controlled. You ask me at any point, where are we in the process? I can tell you what steps are in front of us. I can tell you that kind of thing. But some steps are, we need these creatives to figure some shit out and then get back to us. That's sometimes the part of the process. And so that's the kind of wiggle you have to have. And sometimes,
And
Go ahead.
that was from your producing side, is what you're talking, like your productions?
Post-production supervising
Uh-huh.
is producing a lot of post-production art. So it's kind of producerial in its functions. Actually, there are a lot of creative decisions. Actually, most creative decisions I have nothing to do with.
Yeah.
Like I service it. Like they want to do these kind of graphics. That means we got to get these things ready. So I get the logistics of the ideas going. And maybe sometimes they'll ask me because I have some experience. I've been around, like, what do you think, Rich? But I don't ever get to really influence decision or make decisions. The biggest difference is like how big is the pie you're making? Like feature, you're doing one pie for like 2 years, right? And the digital, you're doing like little cupcakes, like 30 cupcakes this week. And
Mm.
commercials, it might be even more. You might be like doing like 10 spots, but like 75 localization versions. Like there's like lots of little pieces all the way at this end of the spectrum. TV would be in the middle. TV, you're dealing with hour-long or half-hour episodes, but there's still 10 of them. So it's kind of like there's a succession experience. And then so TV also has the experience of like being at various stages. So like on some episodes, you're just doing pre-pro and you're just talking about where to shoot. And then some you're like you're at the fine cut and it's still not working and you gotta like figure out. So like those are the three differences. And so on any given day for the digital short, sorry, the unscripted digital and then the television would be that you're juggling these various stages. So you might be doing pre-production, like if before any of the shows start shooting, you're doing a lot of engaging with producers,
Mm.
just getting briefed on the creative direction and sort of like trying to anticipate what customization you might need. Because after a while, you get a machine, you have a kind of a system, you go from start to finish, but every show has something different. So like this show, the talent needs to see a lot of da da da, so we gotta do extra set of cuts for talent. Or this show has like a gazillion YouTube clips that we like trying to populate and try. So we need like 12 AEs, like, you know,
Mm.
not like literally 12, but like the full team of AEs, like full time as the edits are going, which is different than normal edits. So you're looking for these kind of things. What's the different thing in this show? Then when the show starts shooting, you're preoccupied with gathering the footage correctly. And that's mostly you and the AEs. And that's a lot of coordinating with production. Where are you going to be shooting? When are you going to be shooting? Are we going to have room for a DIT? Who's going to shuttle the footage back? Just making sure footage gets onto the servers, right? And
Mm.
then once it's there, you sync it, prep it, and organize it all so that people can start editing. That's the next step done by AEs. And then after that, you have a story producer who comes in and takes that big pile of footage and then brings it down to a smaller pile of footage, and then the editor steps in, and then we make the sculpture, and then once we log picture, we do some color, sound, and finishing. So that's the timeline. And as you can imagine, if you have like three, four, or five episodes going on and you're at various stages, the life of a post-production producer is to juggle all of those stages and kind of act on the priority of the moment. Sometimes it is crazy. There have been years where I was at the office till 10, like regularly. I like had a ramen maker in the kitchen. So like,
Working more than 10
yeah,
hours.
you got
How
like
many
that.
hours?
Like six, something like that. Nothing too crazy. But then you have like these down periods where like you're not in the middle of an edit, you're in between shows. So like you come in and you socialize for half the day and then you go home, right? You have those days too. Not as many, but um we had that here for a couple months.
You see all the names when you go to watch TV or you go to watch a movie. People, how many times did we all sit there and say producer, executive producer? And you just go, okay, but everyone seems to go, who's the director? That seems to be the big thing. But when I recently got to film this semester, I had to play producer. I had to make sure we had an editor. I had to make sure we, had the room scheduled for the studio for the shoot. I had to make sure I had the lighting people, the camera person, the sound, and it's and when you're kind of overseeing all this, I don't know, they kind of, I've been in that position before, but it's responsibility. And then you realize if somebody doesn't show, well, we kind of screwed, or we gotta, and that's probably, is that kind of like what you have been doing on the post side? You kind of oversee like the editing and what effects maybe go in, or oh, we're like you said, doing a lot of YouTube stuff, so I need more people to pull this stuff out. Is that what you're
Yeah,
kind of
so
like a management?
yeah, staffing is a big part of it. Staffing is a big part of it. So like putting people in the seats when they're needed, but also hiring new people because freelancers come and go. And equipment and equipment and software, things like that too, right?
And it's a lot. I mean, you edit as well, is that right, Rich? You're an
I
editor.
have. I have.
Okay, actually, I mean, it is it's a powerful tool. I didn't realize until it's like everything. You don't realize what a producer does or all these people do it till you actually step in the position. But editing it's amazing how you can just move something from here to there, move something around and just make such a big impact on a story.
Yeah. I mean, because Hollywood and movie stars, I think most people put the emphasis on production and I guess producers too, because each day of production is super expensive, right? But let's be honest, you're just
Yeah.
going to the supermarket for ingredients. The cooking gets done in editing, right? Like that's where the meal gets made. So I don't know if I chose editing because it was the most important department, or I kind of chose it and then decided it was the most important department. But I do think it's I remember thinking a lot when I was editing that I was surrogate directing. So it would be like practice directing. You're not out there on the set, but you're still like dealing with all the elements bottlenecking into your hands and how would you execute
Yeah.
this guy, right? So that was an educational. I love that editing is also educational towards the directing brain, right? Yeah.
Good editors are also excellent directors. Not all the time, but
Yeah.
yes.
They tend to be in the heads down kind of lone shark kind of souls, right? But there have been a couple editors in Hollywood, like I think the guy who did Sound of Music was an editor, that kind of thing. So that's
Mhm.
how, you know. Yeah. And what editing is also back end writing. It's like your last draft,
Mhm.
right? So like that's also where editorial sense starts to feed screenwriting, and then screenwriter sense starts to inform editing instincts, right? So, like as you're looking at your movie, because of production, like we couldn't shoot the whole scene and or like we cast the wrong actor, that scene just isn't working. Now, how do we deal with this part of the second act, right? So the writer brain is actually working more than, it's kind of a writing and editing at that point.
Yeah,
But
I think
okay, so you're in a documentary course, is that kind of where you want to go? Nonfiction or fiction? You're
I like a lot of everything. I've directed. I did acting. I'm kind of getting the picks of every little thing really, but I like you were talking. I like cinema. I would love to do that, but that might be like what you were saying. It's kind of like sometimes you have to, when you're hungry, sometimes you got to eat what's available. So, whatever kind of comes, you kind of take your experience and go with that and work with that, and then who knows what doors may open. I've taken writing courses. As a matter of fact, I'm writing something right now. They're getting ready to film in a couple weeks. So yeah, there's all kinds of I have kind of a big plethora.
well,
Yeah. Some of the reasons why I'm trying to do these sessions with other people with other positions rather than just editing is because and I just put myself as an example. When I was a student, I was doing everything. I was directing, writing, editing, like just a solo person doing everything. And that was my belief, right? If I'm gonna do a project, I'm gonna do it all myself. I don't need a team. So then after film school, I learned, oh, okay, it's actually a team of a lot of people, and every person has each a different role, right? So when I discovered that, I said, okay, so it's easier for me if I only focus in one thing, even if I know how to do the other stuff. It's important to know the other stuff because that is going to help you even like be better in if you focus in only one thing. So for example, focusing on editing, I feel more in control, right? And I feel, as Rich said, like I feel like I'm writing. I feel because sometimes you have to also, cooperate with the team. You have to add ideas or stuff like that. So it's pretty much like a teamwork all the time. So for me, in that sense, I feel it's better when you know a little bit of everything. But if you want to focus only one thing, then that 100% that you are putting there, uh, it worth more because you know what it took to build all this that is now in your hands. And also talking with Rich in this case, who is a post-production supervisor, gives you like what other roles you can do outside. Because some of the stuff that they teach you at school, it's only like one or two things. Like they are only giving you the core, right? Like acting, producing, directing, what else? Screenwriting, sound design, some a little bit of, I mean, if you go to the sound area, of course, they're going to teach you like composing, music composition, and all that stuff. But that's it. They touch maybe a little bit on how it's to be an assistant editor, but that's it, right? And when you go out and you start working on a company, you realize there are other positions that maybe you are good at it, but you didn't know because you didn't know those stuff exist. So yeah, this is, kind of like what I was trying to do with this. And I think Rich has many things to help and respond. But yeah.
Yeah, or like experiences really does help you. It's good to learn, but you need to get out and do. But
Mm.
one of the things that kind of baffles me is I know we do editing, but then I turn around and I find out like you put the film together, but
Yeah.
you send it off to get all these things done by, I guess, other experts. And then you may leave spaces for like you were talking effects,
Something,
and then
yeah.
it comes you mix it, and then you have to take that, and it seems like from there you even go further and have to cut it down more.
Yeah. And the range of scale is so big. You have everything from like, the LA Dodgers to the stickball crew down the street. Like it all counts as producing, it all counts as editing. So it's like I would say the scenario you're talking about is like when you're making features at high enough on the food chain, then like even color correction, like we'll have like literally like we're building the credits. Our color correction team is like 9 people, and our VFX team for one company is like 7 people. And on the last movie I did, we had like 3 VFX companies that all came with 12 people. There's a DI intermediate producer, there's a color producer, there's a color assist. Like it's just kind of, what happens when you have like a century of like sort of apprentice-based craft sort of like industry where like everybody has a very specific role, and then the union doesn't even allow you to touch the cables of another department, right? Like
I'm sorry, I have to laugh because
that
that is so
culture.
true. I know. Yeah.
It is that culture, but now we're living also in an era where like the content producers, your favorite TikToker, YouTuber, breaks out their phone, da 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 da, no color correction, no sound, no nothing, just bing bang boom, and then she's making $18,000 off that video. So like I guess
Yes.
now there's such a range that it depends on where in the overall food chain you are. But yeah, it can get that elaborate for sure. Absolutely. And that's why you also need 35 producers because you can't have one person like kind of actually dealing with all of it. And then you have line producers that just deal with money and spreadsheets. Then you have like executive producers who just like call Tom Hanks and say, "Hey, can you read the script?" And then like you have all these other producers in between. So like yeah, there's a lot of work that one single movie can theoretically entail, but I think the future is going to go towards even feature films reducing seats, much shorter credit rolls.
That is a good thing to kind of bring up and talk about. And thank you for bringing that up. Maybe there's more you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I think there will still be a number of films that gets, the 10-minute credit rolls and like the 300 people doing VFX in Korea or whatever, right? That there will still be movies like that. James Cameron still wants to make five more Avatars. But like the overall like volume of content that Hollywood produces in general, like that's still being kind of worked out. I don't think the industry itself knows because we got double whammy tech, with technology. We got the streaming technology and the AI thing both hitting us. And what streaming took away was income, and then AI took away was position. So it's just like, is this gonna kind of go towards not that the winners of tomorrow are all gonna be the one-man bands, but it will be more beneficial for you if you can one-man band, right? And the way I see, like, if you want, I don't want to get too into AI because that could itself take like, hours. But like what I see AI as potentially offering us is the opportunity to be a studio head, like a little studio head. And if you want composers, you got AI music. You want writing, you got AI, synopses, like you can get 100 synopses in an hour, right? And so like it's just down to you, like where do you want to throw your energy making use of this technology, right? So where that gives you capability, that's also a lot of responsibility. And sometimes like capability scares us, right? Too much capability, right? That's a kind of a scary notion sometimes. So it's been a slower to adopt than I guess everyone feared AI. It's not going to just take all our jobs tomorrow, right? It's going to be a little slower than that. But I guess the more immediate thing is like the streamers. Netflix and then now Disney Plus is kind of this, they became the kings of the industry deciding how things go. So we'll see how much they want to make. And then I think where the reason I'm fixated on Hollywood right now is I think a lot of the rest of the industry kind of flows downstream from there. Like narrative
Mm.
TV kind of starts getting its cues for what kind of things, or how much volume of content companies need to actually exhibit on their platforms. Like, it all is connected. I would say YouTube and TikTok, that universe is disconnected, but the corporations all see it all under one giant kingdom, right? Because money, it's all money in the same giant kingdom. I guess if we're talking about how to kind of get going, really, like given where things are, I think because the world itself doesn't have it all figured out yet, what the new deal is,
Hmm.
I would say do the best as you can to have fun in this period where there are really no rules, no right way, best way, smartest way to do it exactly, and just get in the habit of making content, like just having work come out of you, and not have every last video be kind of a big deal. Just like have it just become a natural bodily function.
Thank you. I like that advice and talking and giving me all the information you did. Okay.
Happy to. I was nice to meet you, Scott, and look me up on LinkedIn. More questions, hit me up.
Will do. Thanks again, Sheila.
Nice
Okay.
having you.
See you, buddy. See you, Jack.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Hi,
Uh,
Joaquin.
hey, Joaquin.
Welcome.
Joaquin, what are you up to? What are you looking to accomplish with your education right now?
So tomorrow I'm starting my LLC or LLC or something,
Oh, you all
because
see,
it's
nice.
I got pushed, like I've been doing film editing for a while. Everywhere I go, people's like, "Hey, would you film for me this? Would you film for me that?" And so now it's to the point where I'm like, well, even I technically my last semester is this one. I still want to go for my master's. My goal was to first to just to edit for people, but now it seems like podcasting is a huge market. Some people don't want to do all the hard work. They just want to come and get do the filming and like blah blah blah, and then they're like, bye, give it to me like in 2 3 days.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I'll be your huckleberry for that. I'll do it.
That's a
Um,
great area to look. The podcast space. I don't know what paychecks are like in the podcast space, but I suspect there are a lot of positions because you're like you said, there are a lot of influencers who don't know editing. That's not their thing, so they need one. But the other thing is like, I had one of my AEs like move to Chicago just to kind of go on a life adventure. But for work, he's been hitting up sports teams and asking them if they need someone in their video department. Because now these days, like any brand or any entity has to have some major presence of like content presence online somehow,
Yeah.
right? So it's not podcasts, like the Chicago Bulls aren't doing podcasts, or maybe they are. Maybe there is a player who does a podcast and that guy needs a guy, right? So like
Hmm.
Yeah.
it's a growing space, and yeah, you be out there with I think part of the media culture that matters, in my opinion. So it's exciting, yeah.
You just keep building what you're doing now and try to get everything into a great demo reel or something. Try to build your website so you can show the snippets of your editings or just all the projects that you have been working on. And that's kind of like your business card.
Yeah.
And whatever you apply to a company or you get a client, you have already that, to show. Because otherwise, it's if you go empty-handed, yeah, you can
Yeah.
say I have experience, but okay, I need proof. I need to see something.
My
So,
business cards just came in yesterday. So I got the dot.
oh, you already have. Okay, well, that's
I just
a
got it
good.
today. It just literally came in today because they were like, "Hey, you need to have a dot for this event." Okay,
What are your questions? What are some blind spots? What are some kind of boogeymen in your, what's stopping you? What's scaring you, you know?
What I think of what I'm afraid of is not making an income where I can take care of myself. And the great thing is like being retired from Air Force, I'm ahead of a lot of people where I'm getting a retirement. So therefore I don't worry about my paying my house, but
Hmm.
everything else I do have to work for, So my mortgage is paid. So my responsibilities, like utilities and cost of living after that.
That's the hardest question on that list is like, how do we get the income set up? Because there's just no way. Like filmmaking is more like life than any other industry I know. You go out there and you dance with the universe, make something happen with people. It's like it's the last thing anybody wants to hear, right? Can I just get a certificate and then be on the national registry of like high paid people? No, there's no such thing, right? You just have to dance with life. And sometimes dancing with life means like, I'll fetch coffee for 2 years at the age of 40. Maybe that's dancing. Sometimes it's like you go to these conventions and like you're just so charming that next thing you know, you have a job or, like anything can go. But that's why it's hard to advise people other than, I mean, you're not like coming right out of undergrad. So I don't have to teach you like 21, I don't have to give you 21-year-old advice, right? You already know life is hard and you want anything, you got to fucking work till you bleed, right? So that's my big curiosity for you. Like, I don't know other things about your life, other skills that you can maybe get a job at the whatever and like, do filmmaking at nights and weekends.
Every time that I've been offered jobs and like it's nice money, I'm like, if I get off this road, I will never come back. Because once you start making money, you get comfortable, and then you're like, that's as far as you're going.
What you said is absolutely correct, but you are not destined to be that. You just
Exactly.
have to do the hard thing and be a masochist and say, I'm comfortable, but I don't care. I'm going to still stay up 2 hours tonight and write a script. You just have to have that discipline. And I kind of want to say soldiers are trained to do things they don't want to do sometimes, right? So I feel like that's the thing. Everybody just says it. And what happens is when you say it, that language kind of makes it like sends you that way. No, it's never going to happen. So if you just don't say that and say, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway, even if you don't, you have a better shot at doing it than if you say, you know how everybody gets comfortable and then you don't want to do anything. Then that's gonna happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's how you kind of throw yourself into your future with the words you choose. And if you just inherit other people's like surrendering words, you end up surrendering too. It's a little kind of woo-woo and not exactly filmmaking
Yeah.
what I'm
Oh
talking
no,
about.
no.
You know what
I
I'm
get
saying?
it. Yeah.
I have recently, from this current job I have at Fuse, like finally gotten comfortable. Like I'm not rich, but like I'm not like worrying about, oh, like can I get bacon on my burger? Like I don't worry about that anymore, right? And a little bit more than that, right? But like I wondered like about 5 years ago, right before the pandemic, actually, I quit. I quit like trying to be a writer director, right? Because that I just didn't see it it wasn't going there and it was making me miserable. Um, but after I quit, like, I sort of wondered like how would I what is what am I like as a comfortable, like no longer aspiring filmmaker person? And it turns out that I get very bored and I instantly start looking for more things to do. And that's I think we mentioned
Mm.
it, like I'm working on two other features on top of my day job right now. And that, when I take a step back, I look at that, I go, that's just me being me. Like, I didn't decide. I didn't have to be like, I need more work. Like, it just sort of naturally happens because that's who I am. I cannot be comfortable in just watching TV all day and trying to date girls and stuff like that. That's just not who I am. I get that feeling from you. I get the feeling that even if you had a paycheck, if your work was not fulfilling or like meaningful or doing the thing like helping your brotherhood heal, like you would still make time for that. I don't think you would start coasting. That's my
Mm.
read of you.
Many years ago, I worked with a guy who he is a director and writer, but his full-time work doesn't have anything to do with filmmaking. So he works on the Civic Center in San Francisco, doing like public services. I don't even know what he does, but it's something related to public services or something like that. So non-related at all. Like he says, it's a boring job, but it pays me well. I'm fine with it. Then I go back at night at my house. If I feel the energy, I start writing. So he took a year writing a script. Then he had some friends, some connections and stuff, and he made up a film, you know? And it took him around like 3 years or something, because I know, a film, a, a whole length it takes time. But in between, he did a short film. And that's how I met him. We worked together on a short film. So there is not a problem or an issue if you have something that is not related to filmmaking, that it keeps you grounded in terms of economical situation. But if you can also do your dream job, I mean, do it.
So just keep that in mind. Like, don't fall into that pattern that everyone says. It is there. It is like gravity. But I think
Yeah.
sometimes your own character will make sure you do the work, the necessary work. So,
So there is one student that was actually concerned about, the same situation of like money, stability and stuff. So, and she asked what I would recommend to her, like working as a freelancer or being an employee in a company. Like what is better and how should she start or where to start?
if you can take your personal comfort level aside, the best case of freelancing versus the best case of full-time position, I think freelancing is a little bit better. You get more money and more freedom. The reason it's not better for a lot of people is because it's hard to maintain enough work, that the amount of work always scares people and they would rather get the smaller payday if it means more guaranteed dollars this year, next year, and So, but then I would say to the person who wants to just get a job and just settle in, well, even to get to that point, you have to have a lot of hustle. You have to have the ability to present yourself and and present yourself to new strangers and new environments and all that. So you're gonna have to have some hustle anyway. And I would argue that no one stays at a job for more than 3, 4 years anymore, right? So like maybe you're not hustling every 3 months, you're hustling every 4 or 5 years, but you're gonna have to hustle for your career anyway. So my answer to that would be a non-answer, is like approach and be ready to do both.
Hmm.
Tell yourself you can be the best freelancer. You're gonna go out there and like dance with the universe and like find the open doors, right? Like that's the kind of the game. Like just throw yourself out there and intelligently place yourself so that you have better odds of a door opening. Maybe that door opens because you fetch coffee and then they let you AE and then you were the best AE and then finally they let you be an AE for salaried AE, right?
Hmm.
Or maybe like you made like 12 music videos for your cousin who's a rapper, and when he blew up, then you finally blow up and you're making other rap videos now, and now you're making a lot of money doing that. Like it just takes a lot of hustle to kind of get it all going anyway, that I would say to not think of a salaried life as like an easy life. I think there's a lot of hustle you got to have there. And then once you get the gig, you got to hustle through the organization, right? If you don't want to be
Hmm.
silenced and like have no influence versus you do want to have influence, you do want to be someone that people go to, right? You're gonna have to like have some elbows, right? So that would be my answer. Like I know it seems more stable and more comfortable, but both sides have challenges. At the end of the day, I think the more interesting gigs are all freelance. You want to edit movies in Hollywood, those are all technically freelance. There's no like Warner Brothers like permanent position of editing, and here's Fast and the Furious 9, and here's Despicable Me 4. Like there's no editor like that. Each editor with his agent has to kind of score the other movie and all that.
Hmm. Yeah.
That part of the business, like the TV and the film and TV industry that's connected or like that has unions in it, that is the most structured entry into the industry. If somehow you can get like an apprenticeship or an assistant position in a camera department, you can work your way up by paying your dues. That is a much more formal track, but even in that world, like, what if the producer you've been working for 20 years decides to change careers? Like now you're like you gotta, your job prospects aren't as good as like what you thought, and like there's just a lot of challenges there too. But the world is I think the world is going to make fewer and fewer of these big Marvel movies. So there's gonna so the world is kind of waiting to see outside of that system how much more content, what kind of content do the streamers and theaters even want from people to make. It's
Hmm.
still that there's a lot of dust in the air and we don't really know. So it's a hard time to start giving advice, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's changing. It's very fast-paced changing. We don't know where it goes. So it's
Well,
like, let's wait to next year and see what happens. So it's always like, yeah, very uncertain, but exciting at the same time.
yeah. So my advice is a kind of a non-filmmaking advice. It's just a personal, like a human advice, like find your strengths to make it through this period of uncertainty with confidence and strength and have some fun and joy. And try not to make decisions out of fear,
Hmm.
though it's scary times.
Yeah, yeah. Very helpful. Thank you, Rich. Thank you. There is also another question which I found it a little bit funny, but I know for some people this is a concern, which is like once you're working on a job, right? And you made a single mistake, either, as an assistant editor or editor, is it true that you're gonna get fired and your reputation is gonna be damaged forever?
It is not true. There may be some mistakes that are fireable. That's true. I'm not going to say there's no mistake that will get you fired. But no, if you make a mistake, most times, people, it can get absorbed and people around you figure it out. It's the stakes, if it's like somebody super important stop by the office and you have 5 minutes to shoot one quick little thing with him and then fuck that you didn't get the sound right, like maybe that president would be really embarrassed and pissed off and fire you, maybe, right? But
Mm.
if you transcoded these proxies at 2398 and not 2997, no one's going to fire you for that. They're just going to roll your eyes and do it again for you or tell you to do it again the next morning, and that's that. And then if you are neither like, oh, that was my fault, and get all big, nor like, I'm so stupid. Oh, why did I fuck up? Like, just be like, okay, cool. What did it have to be? 2997. And then just go do it again. And then come back, be like, it's done now. And just be clean. And then we'll be okay with your mistakes too. It's like when there's a lot of like, about the mistakes, it's like, it's noisier than it needs to be, then maybe that mistake won't get you fired, but maybe the next gig they won't be like, hey, let's call that person again, you know?
Exactly.
So it's about, yeah, kind of being easy to be around, to deal with, and present feedback to, and, even like have problems described, like the person should be able to take it calmly.
And
Yeah.
being proactive too,
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, how can I solve it? Or, all right, so
Actually,
let's go
yeah,
to it.
I would say that the person who comes out and says like, "Hey, I made a mistake. I'm gonna go fix it," like just confidently and like just honestly, and not like try to cover his ass or something. I think that might be impressive to some people, especially if the mistake isn't so costly.
Exactly. Yeah. All right.
Hollywood used to have a lot of staple throwers, or not like literal staple throwers, but that kind of like scary tyrannical boss, like in the 80s and 90s. Like there were a lot of staple throwers in Hollywood, but I think that's going away too. You
Hmm.
know, like people who fire people as easily as like, like action movie stars kill people, right? Just like it's not like the people don't behave like that anymore. Maybe here and there, but for the most part, humans are more forgiving than that question. Especially editors. I think post-pandemic, most editors, I think, are expecting to just work from home. Like it doesn't even come up in the deal conversations anymore. Like, where do you want to work? Like, nope, it's just assumed it's home. But I believe in being out there with people, and like I think there's a lot of synergy that comes from that. So you're an editor and we're always working from home. You can like go out of your way to like do meetup groups or screening, clubs, or like just go out there and artificially meet people, right?
No, and there are many things like I always said, like there are it's Reddit groups, like Facebook groups. There are some people that do meetings quite often, like every week or so. So that it's like there are many things to do.
Or like if you do trivia night in a certain part of town, you're gonna get a lot of filmmakers doing that trivia night, So
Uh,
like there's an intelligence that you can have that way too.
There's a few apps like I think it's called Meetup and I forget Everywhere or something like that one. And they have people that get together and just talk about what they're filming and some people get jobs through that, like to be an extras. I ended up working for a Korean movie as the data collector.
Uh,
I didn't have to
ah,
know it. I didn't have to know the language. All I needed to know was like, hey, when the memory card got full, I just had to transfer it over, and I get paid really well for. It was like for 2 weeks.
thank you very much for being here and for all your time, because I know you are a very busy person. I think having you here, it's been incredible, and I hope the rest of the students that watch this, they also like it.
yeah, I mean, it's always been hard to get into this game at any whatever level. And these days it's not any easier. So, happy to help in whatever way I can. But in a lot of ways, we're all in the same boat right now. We're all kind of going through this together. So, I think the old people can learn a lot from young people too. All right. Thank you
Thank you very much.
for having me. So, all right, guys.